School Board's meeting for Thursday, March 5th, 2020. I'd like to take a moment of silence for the troops to put themselves in harm's way. Okay, if we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Belcher, if you could take roll call, please.
Brian Boyle.
Here.
Lee Doobie.
Here.
Kim Farah.
Here.
Sheila Lowe's.
Here.
Sarah Mockamer. Sean O'Neill.
Here.
Kristen Savage.
Here.
Sue Sherman. Jennifer Silva.
Here.
Also seated at the board table this evening are Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Earl Metzler, and Student Representative Kyle Duffy.
Okay, we'll call up into our approval of minutes.
We have 12 sets of minutes up for approval tonight. You want to go through the public ones first? I've already put together all the non-public and sealed ones ready in packets in order for approval this evening as well.
Okay, we'll start out with the January 9th, 2020 minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the January 9th minutes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Not call for a vote. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Was that unanimous? I'm sorry, I was not looking.
All those abstained.
Everyone,
It was not, it's 601.
Thank you. And who abstained?
I did.
Thank you. Everyone can have one, including yourself. Nope.
We'll move off to the January 16th, 2020 minutes.
I'll make it a motion to approve the January 16th minutes.
I'll second for discussion.
Motion is made and seconded. Is there any,
Yes.
go ahead, Sheila?
Article 6, middle school roof and maintenance and repair. I want it noted in here exactly what we asked for in that meeting, which was a directive to the superintendent to give us quotes, would you say? Mm-hmm. On sections of roofs that would add up with the 10% or whatever was discussed, up to $500,000.
So you want to change the last paragraph on page 2, instead of "and obtaining a quote on the middle school roof," you want,
I wanted to say what we talked about, which was, we wanted sections of the middle school roof that added up to
So,
below a $500,000 amount.
so what we want to do is we want to add language that says obtaining a quote for up to $500,000 for the middle school roof. To clarify that that was what the quote was requested for.
Exactly.
That's all.
It was not the $1 million roof that we got. It
No,
was
no, it was the
sections
five.
of the roofs.
okay,
In the
no,
middle
got it, I
school.
can add that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, motion was made and seconded, so,
I amended it.
So you can vote to approve as amended,
okay,
or as corrected.
okay. All right, so I'll call,
for the current year. Typically, we would not have a new contract from them until we approve the existing relationship. It's a little bit early in the year as well. However, this is what we have. I expect that what we would have next year wouldn't be much different. We'll have an updated budget, but a lot of times, if you look in the back of that contract, we have to abide by, and the food service vendor has to abide by a number of federal regulations. So you'll see that there's quite a few addenda in there, and so those get updated annually as well. Aside from that, I wouldn't expect there'd be too many changes in the contract.
okay, so to summarize, this basically is a 15-cent increase for the 3 school districts, I mean, not districts, but the school levels, the elementary, the middle school, and the high school.
that's a separate item.
Yeah,
This
there would
is-
be 275 is the proposal.
John,
No, it's just
two separate
two
things.
separate things. The first is the contract, and then the price increase is separate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The contract, the prices aren't necessarily part of the contract.
I'm sorry. I didn't understand that then. Okay. Sheila?
Any significant changes in this contract?
Not since the request for
Not since
proposal
we
went out.
renewed it.
That's right.
There are, can I?
Good.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Yeah, there are no language changes. If there were any language changes in the, we would bring them back to you
That's
prior
what I
to,
was-
so you'd be approving this language. We haven't even talked about any changes in language. I think we're pretty happy with the language.
We're happy with the
Both sides are happy with the language.
So
We
this
spent
is-
quite a bit of time with lawyers on both sides getting to this
This is
point.
year
So this is the
3
same
of a
as last
4-year,
year?
yeah, year 3 before, year of
That's
4
what I thought.
renewals. Yeah.
What may change, and it's not really from a language perspective, are any of those addenda at the end, which are federally mandated.
Right.
So if there's been a change in federal law, one of the certifications changes, that certainly, those seem to change every year a little bit, but doesn't impact the contract.
No, and the only other change I would, if we weren't on budget, we may be asking, we would have been asking something perhaps in terms of what they give back in the event that they don't make the numbers, but the numbers look like they're going to be,
Yeah.
we believe they're going to be good
Yep.
operating.
Yep, they've been very good to their budget in the previous years. They're on budget this year, really.
What's the term of this contract, for how many years?
So this contract was initiated in 2017-18. It was a 5-year contract, but each year is considered its own renewal. So it's a 1-year contract with 4 renewals.
Okay,
So essentially, we agreed to the language for that period of time with the 1-year renewals.
okay.
I believe, that's how
That's
I
fair.
believe it.
So if there were any changes, Jeff, would you bring a red line version to us?
Yeah, I could. I don't, it's a general proposition, aside from any statutory requirements, I wouldn't see any to date, but certainly I can bring those to your attention if anything does come up or if anything is proposed by the vendor.
Yeah, just, it'd make it easier looking at it like, oh, okay, that was what was added or removed.
Exactly, yeah. It's fair.
I'll make a motion to accept Whitson for the school year 2021.
Correct. Yep.
I'll second.
Motion made by Sheila, seconded by Lee. Any further discussion? If not, call for a vote. All those in
I'm sorry,
favor?
who seconded that?
I did.
Thank
You
you.
did.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Unanimous?
Can we just take a second just to thank, obviously thank John Patello from Whitson's, certainly our managers, and both the Whitson's and the Timberlane employees that work in our cafeterias. They do a really great job with our kids, and we've come a long way in terms of food service. So I want a quick thank you out to all of them for all that they do for our kids.
I'd agree, and just to think of the 225,000 meal equivalents that they've served to date, and they've done it well and improved. It's quite an
Pretty
accomplishment.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Now, the second part of this is the price increase, correct?
Yes, that is.
And I was getting into earlier, is the proposal is increasing from $2.60 to $2.75 at the elementary for the 2020-2021 school year, from $3.10 from the 1920 to $3.25 for the 2021 school year at the middle school, and the high school is $3.35 for the 1920, and it's gonna move to $3.50 for the 2020 and 21 school year, this proposal.
So 15 cents
Increase.
at all 3 levels.
And you'll note that I've included the history back there from 2014-15. We had a change in 15, which then, or 15-16, which stayed the same, I believe, up through 2019-20. That was the first year we had a change after that. So we've been very, very good, I think, about pricing. And it does get to a point with these contracts, because we do receive federal funds, that there is an evaluation that we have to undertake for the federal government to make sure that our paid meals are not so low in cost that they're, if you will, eating away at the proceeds that the federal government sends us for our free meals. We're very close on that number now, and our weighted average is, we need to be at about 309, and we're below that, I think, in the current year. This will put us, theoretically, this would put us at 310 for the subsequent year. We'd have a dime increase, would probably satisfy that requirement, but I think 15 cents will make it a little bit, certainly the numbers are a little bit more round. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there had been a request probably for a quarter increase, not beginning the 2019-2020 year. So effectively, we've got that quarter increase over 2 years, which is nice. And I think this pricing will put us where we need to be for federal compliance purposes.
Okay. So I'd seek a motion to increase the cost of 15 cents for the food services for the 2020 to 2021 school year.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous.
John, just another quick thing. I know, those of you that have been following this closely, we've had lunch account balances for years, and I just wanted to thank principals, the administrators, the teachers, everybody that's, paras that have been working directly with families in a sensitive kind of way. We're in pretty good shape. Sometimes, obviously, some families run up a little bit of debt, and they've done it in a very, really sensitive, respectful kind of way of work directly with families, and it's not always easy, but, collecting back debt. But that has helped these numbers really work, and we've been able to keep the lunch prices down, so I wanted to thank them. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll just ask a question on this. We do have a new hire in the SAU office, correct?
We do.
That's just helping you out regular. Is she going to be taking the lead on some of these sorts of things? I mean, how is this working now? Is she brought on to assist with this sort of contract now?
Yes. Yep. That's exactly
Could I
it.
have a name,
Oh,
the
Maria.
hire,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and when she was hired? Well,
Right.
yes, no one's been told, so.
I have new business operations coordinator who's been brought on, Maria Watkins. I don't know if anyone's been in the office. You may have seen her. She's
When did she start?
February 17th.
When?
February 17th, the week
Okay.
before break, the week before the
Okay.
full week before the break. She's working out very, very well and bringing her up to speed on. In fact, we've been spending quite a bit of time going over the food service. She's had tours of the buildings, and a lot of our staff, the people who were there. She comes to us from Merrimack College. She was a director in their, or I think a budget director in their office, their finance office there, previous to coming here. She has industry experience in industry as well, corporate software companies and the like. So she comes with plenty of experience, and she has been acclimating to the office, the setting, the environment. Obviously, our system of accounting is a little bit different than on the municipal side. So it's a little bit of a learning curve no matter where you go, but she's doing very, very well. So, and I certainly hope that if you're around, you'll be able to meet her. You'll like her a lot.
And we should take this opportunity to thank Brian Boyle, who was instrumental in the process. He spent quite a bit of time here going through candidates and certainly through negotiations, and we were able to get a really good candidate. So, Brian, I know he spends a lot of time, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
And for the record, I did review the new contract, and the SAU lawyer did make some changes to the contract so that there are some issues that we've had in previous contractual agreements that have now been altered.
Great, thank you. Okay, we all done with that topic? Our next one is the before and after care program at TLC.
So this one I emailed you about today.
Yep, okay, so that's, I know it was fluid, so, all right. The next one, projected unencumbered funds.
So you have a schedule, I believe, in front of you. It's as of February 20th. It's still quite early in the year, so as we tend to get closer to the end of the year, I have much better estimates if we've had a favorable revenue opportunity or we've had some expenditures that have come up or look like they'll be relieved. But it looks like overall we'll have some favorable variances in salaries to the tune of about $845,000, broken down between regular and special education. Our health and dental benefits, $400,000, other benefits, $350,000, books, info, resources, software, $40,000. You can see that we've had some unfavorable variances, as you know, in special education between professional services and tuition. Vocational education will be unfavorable, $80,000 as well. Professional improvement, favorable surplus of $40,000. Legal fees, not really sure what that's going to be. It could be unfavorable, about $50,000. Utilities, favorable, $60,000. And then other miscellaneous favorable variances, about $100,000. So we're looking at about $985,000 in favorable appropriations from an expenditure perspective, and we've had some revenue opportunities come in, and that should be at least 300,000, although I think it'll come in a little higher than that. So we really had some Medicaid funding that to the district that was delayed, significantly delayed last year. And so as a result of the uncertainty of that, I did not budget an awful lot in Medicaid funding coming in this year. We've actually received quite a bit this year in. So if that continues to grow, that's really driving a lot of our revenue variance, is that. And if that continues to come in the way that it has been, then that may continue to grow as well. So right now, it would look like, well, and I've included encumbrances as well that we have left to apply, about 70,000. So looking at it, about projected surplus before any capital reserve contribution of about 1.355 million. I do anticipate that as we get closer to the end of the year, that number will continue to be finessed. So I believe that was presented maybe with the idea to see where we're at, see if there were any projects or anything, any other expenditures that perhaps the business office hadn't considered or that the board would like to have as an initiative.
Okay, I'm sorry, Brian?
I just got a question for Dr. Metza. Is voc ed, does that just mean that there's, because it's an $80,000 unfavorable, does that mean that more students are taking advantage of voc ed? Was it?
Essentially, yeah, more
Than we
students.
budgeted for.
Yep, more students had taken advantage, or taking advantage than we had budgeted for. We had a blip in that enrollment prior to completing the budget last year, and it turned out that the blip, if you will, carried right on in through the current year. So I believe it's been addressed in the future year budget, but it is a reflection of greater enrollment.
I'm
What's the
glad
cost
to
per
see it.
student on that? What's the cost per student on that?
I'd like to say like 3,000, but I don't have the exact number. I'd have to get that. I can get that for you.
Does it vary by program?
It does, yeah.
So that means we've got 17 extra students that we didn't plan for?
It's possible. I don't have the numbers. I don't have the enrollment numbers in front of me. If that's something you'd like to look at, I'm certainly sure we
It
can
just
get
seems
that.
like it's a pretty big, I'm just trying to figure out how many students that is. That's a lot of students. That, out of a class, say, of a couple hundred. Okay. No,
I'm glad to see it.
The
Huh?
cost.
I'm glad to see it.
No, I'm glad to see it. It's just surprising that there's that many more.
Sheila?
Yeah.
I've got a couple of things. First, what I really want to know is the difference from the new Compass program to what it was last year with these same students, sending them out. I want to see the numbers, because this is a lot of money on this Compass program for 4 kids.
Yeah, I think that would
So-
be part of the Compass presentation, but if there's.
But I don't think
You
the
don't-
difference is there. I don't think
I don't-
what we were paying to send these children out compared to what we're spending to keep them in. And I'm also gonna have questions about resources in the school and such for the Compass. However, I'm very curious to see financially what that's doing. And I know what what we're eventually trying to do here is to get them integrated and back into the schools. But I would like to see,
How the numbers work
difference.
on that?
yeah.
Yeah. That's a fair question.
The other thing I'd like to know is, how soon every month can you get the financials put up on the website?
Yeah, it would be at least probably 5 days after the end of the month.
Right.
But I do anticipate that my new resource will be able to help me greatly in that regard. 5 days would be the goal.
I would really appreciate it by at least the 10th.
Yeah.
So that we have it for the second meeting of the month. Because it seems to go up an hour or two before our meeting. And of course, I can't,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to, I have to eat, take a shower, and all that good stuff. So if we could get it by the 10th of the month.
Sure.
For the month before, I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Has it been going up? I mean,
It was very late this past
been-
month. It was
it's-
like the
it's-
last meeting.
It's been a
It
little,
was the end of February, the 20th, and it was probably 5 o'clock on the 20th before we walked in the door. So, for January.
Got it.
Yeah. The budget, budget months, budget development months, closing out the budget, those tend to be very busy in my office.
I understand.
So, but again, I think an additional resource is helpful, which I have,
That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
so.
Anything else?
Did the payments get sent out to the town? I noticed that our income from the towns in the budget was down quite a lot
Yes.
over last year. So was the payment schedule not sent out, or were the towns not paying on time?
It was sent out.
It was sent out, so that means that the towns are paying later than they did last year?
Do you know the
Or is
answer
it a
to the,
different
do you
payment
know the answer to
schedule?
the question you're asking?
Well, I guess the question is, then when I look at revenue coming in from the towns
Mm-hmm.
year-to-date, it's much lower than I would have anticipated. And is that because the towns are paying later, and holding their funds? Is that why?
I don't think so, no. I think they're paying when they receive their bill,
Oh, okay,
when they receive their billing for that second half of the year.
okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Right now, no.
The only thing that I had to ask was, on here is, it's not relative to this one, but is it just an general audit update? Where we stand?
Yep, I know, I'm, again, with my additional resource, I'm working her into that process as well. And so I anticipate that, so we have quite a bit done, I think, on Timberlane already. I believe a lot of the field work is done. So now it's a matter of just winding everything up with them. So, and I believe we're looking around this time of the year to have it complete, not mistaken,
When is it looking to be completed by?
in the next 3 weeks, I would guess.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you, Mr.
Very well.
Thank you.
All right, the other one was this, district clerk compensation. I'm actually want to postpone this one, because I'd actually like to bring in our current district clerk at a time, after we've gotten through the election process, to, actually, she's been doing a whole accounting of her hours and stuff, and it would be nice to have all of that data set in front of us as we evaluate this position.
I did ask her to track her hours because you would be looking
Correct.
at compensation.
And it's all different, you gotta put some variability in there, the unknowns and all that other stuff. But it's to do something that we, to look at it in a complete fashion.
Sorry, before Jeff went.
I'm sorry.
It just hit me now.
I even stayed longer.
I'm sorry. We have a redacted name. I never got the answer to that in the last meeting. I
I
must.
can give that to you later.
I'm sorry?
I can give that to you later.
Okay,
If you'd
because
like.
I don't want to
have more
sign anything with the redacted name in it.
info- Okay.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
I'll tell you exactly what it is after, but I cannot
Okay.
do that in public.
But I'm not looking for it in public, it's just that
Yeah.
we're looking
members
for
of the board-
signatures.
It is a transportation piece, I can tell you that much, but I can give you more about that.
Thank you.
And so the entire board knows that in the event that there is a disbursement that's made, that the disclosure of which would leave one, or could violate any of the requirements that we have under FERPA, special education, or anything like that, that's when you will tend to see those payments blacked out.
Well, it's the first one I've ever seen, so, thank you.
Okay. So that, yeah, as I talked about, the whole district clerk, we're gonna postpone that until after the election cycle. And we'll move on to the next one, our policies.
Hopefully that's you.
That's me. We have 9 policies coming before the board this evening for first read. Policy 1, BCA, and the related procedure, BCAR. We're aligning that to reflect NHSBA's recommended language. And BCAX being eliminated. DDA, we're making revisions to that regarding the opening of the meeting, and I can talk to that if anyone cares to. I think it'll be pretty self-explanatory as you read through it. BDB, also aligning with NHSBA. BDC, updating some legal references. BDD, reaffirming, there's no changes there. BBBH, we're gonna reaffirm, and no changes, I don't believe there were any changes on that one, I'd have to go back and look. BDE, that was sent back to the policy committee, when it came before the board the first time. There's been some changes made, and it's coming back to the board for the first read. BDF, aligning that with NHSBA and reaffirming, and then finally BDG, just simply reaffirming, no changes.
Lee, I also added your goals. That's something that you had done
I thought
two
that was new
meetings
at the
ago.
bottom.
And I only added them so that you could present them to the board as the work that you had accomplished as one of the things that you were looking to do. You set a mission and then you set some goals.
I'll read through that for everyone. Thank you for adding that, Kathy. I was looking at it, and going, I don't remember that on our last update. So we did create a mission and outline a goal for the policy committee for the year. The mission is the Timberlane Regional School District Policy Committee maintains existing and creates new district policies. The policy committee recommends policies and revisions to the entire Timberlane Regional School District School Board for their approval. Our goal is during the 2019-2020 school year, the Timberlane Regional School District Policy Committee will review district policies to keep current with revisions to New Hampshire RSA's, case law, and recommendations from the New Hampshire School Board Association and the National School Board Association's. Goal 2, during the 2019-2020 school year, the Timberlane Regional School District Policy Committee will continue to work reviewing and updating policies which have been reviewed by New Hampshire School Board Association with priority to the most dated policies. Goal 3, during the 2019-2020 school year, the policy committee will continue to note all related policies and review them together. That was put in place because we had issues where reference policies would contradict each other or not align, so now we're reviewing them together to make sure we have cohesion across. And then goal 4, during the 2019-2020 school year, the Timberlane Regional School District Policy Committee will meet on the first Thursday of each month, and that the school board conducts its business.
So I'd be looking for a motion to accept.
Motion to accept these as a first read.
Second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, Kristen, did you have something?
No.
Okay. All those in favor? Unanimous? Okay. Move on to our administrator reports.
Before we do that, there's a page here in the packet.
Oh, yes. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm reminding you about that. Yes, this was I had sent it out to the board, and a whole process that the board was given to us by council to, actually as a recommendation, to have a process in place for conducting long-term suspension hearings. And this process, and I basically made it effective immediately as I sent it on out, and it would be ratified here tonight at this board with any minor changes if required, but I believe the spirit of this whole document will be intact. So with that, I'd like to open up if anybody would like to talk about it. Kim?
I'd like the superintendent to have some input here.
Yeah, my understanding is most of, all of these things, I guess, are already in place, so it's fine to have a checklist. My concern, obviously, is they'll have to be scheduled around my schedule. If you want me there, I'm fine. But I do have quite a bit of vacation time that I'll be using, and in the event, not having superintendent or designee, I think is a mistake. There may be a period of time where I couldn't be at one of these, which would put us in a difficult situation. That being said, obviously, we need to schedule these hearings around my schedule, if you absolutely need me there and do not want my designee. That's really my input. For the most part, like I said, my understanding is all these things have already taken place, so, and have been for, at least for as long as I can remember.
Okay.
I think part of the reason that we wanted to codify it were there perhaps may have been some issues with some of these not taking place.
Yeah.
You know, and I understand your concern, and so I share the same concern. You know, we have process, and we have due process, and we certainly have special ed cases that are very unique, and you've had an opportunity to see quite a few. So, yeah, a checklist is certainly helpful for me, right? Because I rely on people that work for us to make sure that all these things are taking place. What you've been doing is what I've been doing. The same questions that you ask, the same concerns that you have about process, and was this done, and when did this happen, and how did this happen? My administrators would come in, they would tell you the same thing. I mean, those are the same conversations that I have. They're much more informal, and the board hearings were much more formal, so I think this will get us to a really good place, so that's good. My only concern was that I'd hate to be out for a period of time and not be able to be here for one of these, but we'll work around that, one way or another. We'll get it done. If you think I absolutely need to be here, then I would suggest you don't change it. If you have confidence in a designee or of mine, then I suggest you change it. And that's certainly your prerogative to do what you feel is best.
Jim?
I think the letters that go out to parents are signed by you, are they not?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They
think
get
that would-
processed through see, it's an SAU function. There's two separate districts, and so, you know, it's working as an SAU to get those things processed. You know, I rely on Timberlane employees to take care of Timberlane work. I rely on Hampstead employees to take care of Hampstead work. They obviously come through my office, and certainly recommendations. You know, some are special needs driven, some are student service driven, and so those are processed, obviously. That's clerical work here, and that gets taken care of here, so.
So this is an SAU function.
And if I'm involved, it's an SAU function. I don't work for Timberlane, I work for the SAU.
Okay, just clarifying that.
But I rely on the Timberlane
I
employees to
understand
execute
that.
the functions.
I just
Like,
wanted to clarify that this is an SAU function, that's all.
well, if you're asking me to do it, it has to be.
Okay.
My 2 cents is, the letter comes signed by you. So, yeah, I would think if you are asking or stating that you want more than a 10-day suspension, that you should be here for the hearings. I don't want to change that personally. Because it's, I think it's important if you're
Well,
writing the letters.
I don't disagree with you. The only thing I would say is, I sign a lot of things. I got 1,000 employees, I got 5,000 kids. I sign a lot of things that I'm not necessarily directly. I handled all of these when I had the proper help. Without the assistant superintendent, it's very difficult for me to handle all of these. That's why I have to have someone in Hampstead and someone in Timberlane to handle some of those informal hearings. But for a long time, I handled them all in both districts. It's just there are different periods of the time, different periods of time and during the year, and we just happen to be in one of those busy periods of time. There are more suspensions than other times of the year. It's just one of those things. So, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. And like I said, if that's the will of the board, and say make yourself available because these are important, and I don't say they're not important, but I do trust the people that work for me. That's fine too. That's why I phrased it the way I did. If if you're not comfortable with my designees, that's fine. Then say no. No offense to anybody, but we'd rather have you here, and that's fine. You know.
Do we need to make a motion or anything on this? Do we need to?
Hold on that.
It is not that the board does not trust your employees. The board sees that you're signing the letter, you're the ultimate authority here, and that's why the board wants you here. I just want to clarify that for anybody that happens to be listening. This is not about not trusting employees or feeling that they can't do their job. As the superintendent, you're signing off on these. is an SAU function, so that's why the board wants you here.
And I think I framed that correctly. I think I was very sensitive to the way I said it, and it's no different, it's different in a sense because it's suspensions, but it's no different than licenses and certifications and all these other things that I have people that actually help me with that work. I mean, it's just, that's the reality of being the superintendent of a district, 2 districts these sizes, so.
Brian?
Sure. This document that we're talking about, where did this come from? Did it come from Brummer Whitson? Where'd the document come from?
Yes, between it was actually, I believe, Attorney.
It came from Soloway and Hollis. At our last meeting, we had a direction to work, actually for the superintendent, to work with Soloway and Hollis to come up with a checklist to be used for student hearings so that we could ensure that all statutory, regulatory, and policy requirements had been made before the school board convened. So I think there was a little disconnect in that it got just developed and then sent to the chair and then sent to the superintendent. That's why I'm asking for the superintendent's input, because the motion, I'm not sure if you had time to look at the motion from the last meeting, was for you to work with Soloway and Hollis to make sure that this got put in place.
Yeah, so that, I guess you hit the nail on the head. There's a ton of disconnect here, because when I got this, I assumed it came from our attorney of record, which was Drummer Woodson, and they said no. I talked to Jim, and he said no. He said we had issues with it, we shared our issues, but it's from Holloway and Salas, and they never contacted me at all about this, so I'm like, which is fine, I mean, there isn't anything, you know, the law's the law, so follow the law, these are the things you're supposed to get done, there's nothing really, other than my concern about, you know, if I have to be here, this is, you know, if that's the request of the board, I'm certainly gonna honor that, and I just have to have some scheduling issues that I would have to deal with because of the shortage of staff. But, yeah, they didn't reach out, they didn't run any of this by me, they didn't ask any questions, so that didn't happen. And that was that directive, I got the directives, I was on vacation, but I got the directives, I read through them, I'm like, I'm waiting to hear, and not a single contact, not an email, not a, hey, will you take a look at this, no input. This was just like, this is in place immediately, hey, that's the way it goes, kind of thing, and so.
We're asking your input right now, and
I know
you
you are.
don't,
And I give it-
you
I
don't
give
seem
it.
to have an issue
No,
with it.
my-
That's why
my
I'm
issue-
asking your input.
My issue was,
The requirement aspect.
is a
of it.
requirement only because, I did them all. This is kind of what I've done for a good part of my 35, almost 40 years in public education. You know, spending time with families, doing these informally with our administrators, and so it's not, you know, I think, I know there was some discussion at the policy committee tonight, so we're probably gonna kick and punch this some more, but the checklist shouldn't change. Right?
Okay, so you have no problem with it other than,
Okay.
okay.
So I'd actually seek a motion to ratify this, or if somebody wants to make a motion to change it.
I don't have any issue with it, but it's something that I want to make sure the superintendent doesn't have an issue with, and
Yeah,
you
can we-
don't have an issue with it.
No,
other
I mean,
than,
can we give it to policy committee to make sure this lines up with JICD and JIA? Can we I'm fine with the policy committee making sure these line up perfectly.
I would, at least from my viewpoint, I'd like to keep this in place.
Yeah, while they're doing that.
And while anything else is being developed, or looked at, or ratified at another time. I mean, I like this board to keep this in place until such time
So-
something else comes up.
Yeah, there's
Tim-
nothing here that currently is misaligned with JIA or JICD.
See, that's why I appreciate Dr. Farah asking, because what I don't want to have happen is agree to something that's in one of the policies, because it doesn't line up for some reason. There's a lot of times we have conflicts within our policies that we're not even aware of, and then they kind of surface for some reason. Something happens, and you're like, well, how come this says this and this says this, and they don't line up, and so I don't,
The whole reason why we're gonna start looking at all related policies together to avoid that.
Well,
Kristen?
Sorry, I was just gonna say, to meet all needs here, could we simply say that we're going to send it to policy just to double check, but in the interim, we're going to put this in place as a temporary process moving forward? So that way we're doing it, but then if policy looks at it and says, you should change this and this, we can do that. Or if not, if they say, no, it looks good, then we can accept it at that point. But we can still put it in place in the interim.
Okay.
and no knock on any firm. This is not a knock on any firm. It's just I would like the firm that we're working directly with to give it kind of their blessing as well, because that was one of the criticisms. We changed some policy that we didn't run by the lawyers that actually represent us, And then we were being criticized for a policy that they said, why didn't you show it? Why didn't you run this by us? And I was like, well, I mean, you know, so we got too many firms kind of,
Well, in this case, this is the firm that is representing the board on these hearings, so I think it would be.
I think
it
you're wrong.
makes-
I think they're not representing the board. They're the moderator of the hearing. That's different. They're not representing the board. They were very clear that they did
You're-
not want to
okay,
represent the
So they're
board.
the moderator of the hearing. I think the moderator of the hearing, I mean,
They're
I
still
think
our
it's
legal
fine.
counsel.
I mean, you can
You're a hearing officer.
run it by Drummond and Woodson, I guess, also, but let's put it, I agree, Kristen. Keep this in place. In the meantime, policy can look, and you're welcome to run it by Drummond and Woodson if you feel that there might be, they should know their school council.
Right, but it's an interim process we're going to follow
I mean, I don't think there's
pending
anything,
final approval.
I didn't see anything in here that you were asking us to do that was not good for kids, right? Or good for due process, right? So that's where
Perfect for that.
it's very safe. I just want to make sure that we're not, there should be more on here that's not on here, or something that conflicts somewhere else. And I really rely on the lawyers to tell us that.
So
Well, and just in light of all that, for the people, because I think obviously the people in the room, we're more familiar with it, but for those at home, this document we're talking about was generated because there have been several student hearings over the last 30 days. So this was drafted by a law firm, not by school board members.
Right.
So I think
Right.
it makes sense to get something going, and then you can modify it. So,
So what I would seek is a motion to keep the current proposal for student, requirements for student long-term suspension hearings in place and to forward this document to the policy committee for review.
Regular ed students,
Regular ed students?
yeah. Special ed students have a different process.
Okay.
I thought they had an additional process.
Well, they have a manifestation determination, but there's also, it's just a different,
I can
it's
see that
similar,
as,
but it's a little different. Their due process is very different with the DOE when it's just a very different process. It's similar, but it's different.
can we get that as a future action item so that we can understand that process? Because I got a feeling that this might be the ground basis of that process, and then and additional requirements that are put on upon.
Yeah, we'd have to have, Susan can come in and walk you through that. That was like, for instance, a student, there's an infraction, and sometimes before you have a hearing, they may request, be tested. And they may be identified, and that may change their process because of that or not, and then you have a manifestation.
No, I
yeah.
understand.
So I know you've been exposed to a lot of this, so, over
Changes
the
the
last few weeks.
timeline.
Yeah, the timeline changes a little bit, and requirements change a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we could have them parallel, it's almost like a flow chart, if
Yeah,
this, then this.
exactly. It should be almost like that, parallel type flowcharts with their uniquenesses.
Kathy, could you read that motion that Sean made back, please?
He asked that a motion be made to keep the current proposal in place and to forward it to the policy committee for review.
I'd like to add on to that, that this also goes to Drummond and Woodson
For review?
for review.
And there's not a motion been made, so you should make
Yeah,
that
so-
motion.
Well, we can add on it, you're building on it, and then you can.
Building
change
on it, this is the motion I'm
This
making.
is your motion.
That we send this to Drummond and Woodson to get any,
Feedback.
feedback from them in regards to this. That's it right now.
Okay. Motion's made by Sheila, seconded by Lee. Any further discussion? No? Call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous?
Sean, I'd like to make a request of the chair. That you contact Solway and ask them if we need a separate procedure for special education
Okay.
to follow, to make sure that children's rights are being kept, followed, etc. Because if we're gonna do this, I wanna make sure we get everybody.
Procedure or checklist, Sheila?
checklist.
Just want to clarify.
To
There
make
is a
sure-
procedure around it.
Right, but to make sure that everything is being followed.
Cases.
Should really go to Drummond Woodson. That's that's who handles all of our special ed cases.
I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And they really should be on the same page if one's moderating and one's representing the district. Anyway, right?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, anything else on that? All right, we're gonna move off to administrator report.
Great. This is pretty brief. You have, let's see, these are those on there?
So, no, they got these in their packets last meeting,
Oh, so that was the last meeting. Okay, so in tonight's packet, so we have last meeting in this.
because we didn't get to it because the meeting changed. I think that, I can't remember exactly what happened, but we fast-tracked it, and so Susan Rasko was not able to announce what was placed in board packets at the last meeting.
Okay. So meetings in tonight, materials in your packets tonight, you have an executive summary on the sanitizing and cleaning efforts. I have to, thank Gary Paradise and certainly his staff, as well as, Don Woodworth and Kathy Belcher and Susan Rassico and everybody that was involved over the weekend in terms of trying to wrap your heads around the norovirus and certainly all the things that we're doing here. It was very, very complicated and kind of convoluted in lots of ways, but I think, the commissioner, called me several times and thanked us for our efforts, said we were ahead of everybody else in many ways, and then the CDC came out literally after we had already done what we were doing to support what we were doing. So, and it really, on a Sunday, during vacation, all these people are pulling together, so they did a great job. So, but that piece there is, that was a step. Jen Silver, she reached out and gave us some ideas too about, what she thought, in terms of where we should have extra sanitizing materials and those sorts of things. And Gary, by the time I got to Gary had already had all those in place. So we really appreciate the efforts. It's a ton of work, and they're doing a good job. Also in your packet, you have the NEAS self-study, the Endicott survey, and the 2016-17 aggregate report for use as a reference. These materials were also emailed out to board members today, so I guess you have an electronic copy and a hard copy if that's you prefer. And finally, we have a pitching machine donation. Timberlane Baseball Boosters would like to purchase a pitching machine for the baseball program. It's the BP3 baseball pitching machine. It's valued at $3,495. Thus, the school board approval is required. You have a photo in your packets, so I'd ask if a motion to accept that gift from our baseball boosters.
I'll make a motion to accept the gift from the baseball boosters in the amount of $3,495 for a pitching machine.
Second.
Made and seconded. Any further discussion? No, call for the vote, all those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you very
Thank
much.
Yes, let it be known. Thank you. Okay, personnel report.
There is no personnel report this evening?
Any reports to the school board? Anything?
I did contact NEASC and talked to a couple people up there, so we will be putting something together as a response to request corrections to the NEASC report.
Okay, thank you for that update.
Policy committee met this evening. We spent pretty much the entire hour reviewing JIA and JICD. We have some recommended language that'll come back to you for first read.
Okay, anything else?
I think last meeting we had a non-public scheduled, which we did not do.
Well, we're gonna be doing one tonight,
Okay.
so. Correspondence folder, we already did that. Vendor payroll registered, has that gone all the way around?
Yes, it is.
Guess we-
Oh, so,
No, let's see, so you, Brian's gonna take that one home.
There's only 2 signatures on this.
Yep, I need some
Those are
signatures.
redacted. Is that,
Yeah,
how deep is it? Is it right on top?
towards the
I'm
end.
just curious.
No, yeah,
yeah.
But you have that?
I know what it's about, yeah. I can tell you when you go off.
Okay, other business, anything else to come before the board? Lee, had your hand up.
So we were talking about coronavirus earlier. I know over school break, there were students that went to Italy. We asked them to stay home 14 days.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the CDC recommendation of an self-monitoring incubation period.
Yeah, so looking ahead at what else all is going on, and hopefully it'll be all under control. I know we have a Spain trip scheduled
Ah,
coming up in April.
we talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah.
We spent quite a bit of time on this at SLT on Wednesday. So Spain, Portugal trip, we have a trip to France, we have a trip to Canada,
Montreal, yeah.
Montreal. We also have an 8th grade trip. We have a couple 8th grade trips that are more in the continental US. So there was some information we had that changed in the last 24 to 48 hours. We believed that we had till March 31st to recover some of the money in the event that we were not going to go. That has been rolled back, so we have to make decisions by next Wednesday based on some of these trips. And they're unique based on what company you use. So there's a company in Hampstead that's willing to give all the money back, which is unbelievable. A lot of them are just saying 50% or a voucher. So some of the parents, so the group. So we're looking at this. It's tricky because people said, why didn't you tell them not to go to Italy? Well, Italy's status changed while they were there.
Sure did.
You know, and so parents have been reaching out, and they've been, please don't leave this up to just the parent. We'd say it's your choice. It's safe to go. If you don't think it's safe, keep them home. And you know the kind of peer pressure, right? So as a parent, so they're hoping that the school will be able to take some sort of stance. In Massachusetts, their governor is telling, cancel all trips abroad. We're not there. Our commissioner is asking for an inventory about, what trips do you have planned? What's the refund status and those sorts of things? What kind of money can you lose? So we're working that through. But we had an executive summary we were pulling together so that all the trips kind of are in the same, that everybody can understand kind of the position from the district in that regard. So right now, it looks like by next Wednesday, we're really going to have to put some stakes in the ground about what trips we can and cannot go on. And, we're sensitive to two things. Obviously, student safety is the most important thing, and we know that kids have waited their entire Timberlane careers to go on some of these trips and are looking forward to them. And, people are worried about sending students on trips and then not being able to come home, and, there could be medication involved, and so all these there's a lot of complicated things that need to be taken into consideration. So we're working on that as you speak, and so we'd like to have some answers for you by your next meeting. We have to because of that. But right now we're still planning on going, but we're working individually with the thing. We have a trip to Germany at the end of the year, which is also one that is something that they're talking about as we speak. I would like to commend staff, and certainly Ken, who's here, Henderson. We have it's called Google Hangout, which I don't know a lot about. I'm not a technology guy, but Google Hangout, kids are able to get access to their classroom teacher in real time, almost like a live feed. It's like Skype. So those students that were on school-sponsored trips have that access, 6 through 12. The younger students, it's more of a blizzard bag kind of thing, the siblings of, right? So, again, I'd like to thank the families. They were all super cooperative. Now you say, did every sibling of it, it's self-monitoring, but the school-sponsored trips, and staff as well, so that's school business. They're working from home. And then we asked as a community, if you traveled on your own, can you please? And then there's coaches, and then there's bus drivers, and then there's subs, siblings, uncles, aunts. It's really, really complicated as you reach out to make sure everybody's safe. But I have to commend the Timberlane community. It's not perfect, right? But I think we've done a really good job, and it was nice to get the commissioner to call several times to thank us for everything that we were doing. It's complicated in his office too. He's getting a lot of calls. People don't like being forced to stay home. And I know that our attorney O'Shaughnessy is researching. What kind of authority do we have to keep kids home? They're trying to be proactive for the first challenge to that. But here, people are putting safety first, and so that's kind of comprehensive. That
I think having a process in place, such as the Google Hangouts, where people can still do the educational aspect at it, at our home environment, and making accommodations to make it work. That is key to making it be successful. Because if you don't
and again, commend Principal Woodworth, who on a Sunday, called every single family individually that were on that trip and worked out what was in the best interest of that family and the students involved, and certainly the district. So, so that's Ken Henderson and his team making that available. We felt it was more appropriate at the younger grades to do it a little bit differently than Google Hangout.
Sheila?
Great to hear about the schools as far as sanitizing and all that stuff. What about our buses?
Well, buses
Yep,
is,
the buses are on a sanitation program as well. we got correspondence from them this morning, yesterday. The days are going together here, but they do have a protocol in place as well for that, as well as also as self-reporting for drivers who have traveled into concerned areas. So,
That's my next question. So, we're down a bus in Sandown. It was a little chaotic. I sent an email to Sean, got an answer. Sent back another email, didn't get an answer. What's going on with this bus and this driver? We're hearing all kinds of, I don't have a confirmed answer. Why are we short a bus? Are we short a bus because the driver was on a trip?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
So,
several, we're down
what-
several drivers, actually.
My next question is, did that driver drive on Monday at all? Or was this person self-quarantined and did not drive? I want to know if kids were on buses with these people. That
That'll have to research.
Right.
do you understand where I'm going with it?
I do, and I want you to, again, we're asking,
I'm trying to kill the rumor mills here. I'm trying to,
yeah, so. so-
stop the stuff.
Yeah, so you do everything you possibly can, and it's a Sunday, and the bus yard opens when it opens. And
No, I understand.
And it goes out to staff, and they have to self-report, so these aren't necessarily, but,
Right.
so, when was
Again,
that
I
caught?
understand, but if
Right.
somebody was there, then those students, parents,
So, right, and also, and I don't know if I don't know the answer, I can't remember the answer I just gave you. If it was a bus driver, the bus driver did not travel to an area. The bus driver is related to an individual who traveled in an area.
okay?
So, which
So-
is not a first confirmed or anything.
No, I
So,
understand
just
that,
wanna
but
make
it's a
sure that-
self-quarantined and it's all that good stuff, but
Because you can't, the bus company was they were very accommodating when we asked them to ensure that, and they immediately did that.
I am not
They were
saying that they
concerned about
weren't.
how are they going to offload now, because what that would mean for them, and the difficulties with that.
I have an autoimmune issue,
Mm-hmm.
okay? I've got parents out there I've got one that's extremely sick with MS, whose child is on this bus. So, people like us, we need to watch out everything we do. And I completely understand this parents a little bit, because we need to watch everything we do. A cold could put us in the hospital. So this is why I'm asking. I just want to put these rumors to bed. And if they're self-quarantined, that's fine. If there was a driver there, didn't know, okay, we dealt with it. But it's got to be, it's got to be related to the parents. It's got to be related to if there was a driver and there was somebody that was with somebody that was in Italy and it happened and the bus was driven. That's what I'm just trying to get an answer. So, my other thing I wanted to ask is if we can have Gary Paradis come to a future meeting.
Okay.
I just want to see what projects is going on and things like that. As far as we got an executive summary on the pack. I'd like to ask questions. Thank
Do
you.
you want them at the reorganizational meeting or the meeting after?
That meeting after is fine.
Meeting
First,
after.
beginning of April? First one in April?
Sounds good. Okay.
Sean?
Oh, Mr. Duffy?
Just a quick question before we close up here. A lot of students and parents have been reaching out to me and saying, when are we going to set the graduation date? And I know March can be a really wild month, but when do you guys usually end up setting the graduation date based on weather accommodations?
April.
It's
April?
on,
Yep.
yeah, it's on a future date here.
And it's
Yeah.
pretty,
We
um,
used to do it like the first, we used to do it by the 15th of April, then we kind of bumped it to the first meeting in April, which would be the second.
is it June 8th? Is that the date we have off the top?
I think it's the 6th, maybe?
It's that first Saturday in June. The state has given us quite a bit of leadway, especially with seniors in terms of hours. So, I mean, we can get that date out to families. I think we have a tentative date, so families should be planning about that tentative date, but we're not in the same position we were 5, 6, 7 years ago where it would be a whole week later.
Yeah,
right?
no,
We had
and
so many
that's fine.
snow
The
days.
other one is, for setting at the normal date that we would normally be done. And I do like the way of, we did last year where we decided to use hours versus the 180 days because, and I think we all feel that
Instructional
it's
hours, yeah.
pretty foolish to come in like a half a day on a Monday and that's it, or something to that
Yeah,
effect.
we look at that last day and we try to avoid the orphan days on on Monday, so
Yes.
we'll come to you with,
With the
but we still have March, right?
Yes,
So,
no.
Kyle, it's on a future agenda here for April 2nd.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
already written down. I knew I saw it. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
usually once we
Please
hit
remind
April,
us
we're
if,
like,
somehow we forget it.
I will, I'm sure.
Okay, any other business to come before the board?
Non-public?
Okay, yep, no, I do have that, and what I'd like to do is to seek a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91-A:3, paragraph 2, subsection C.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call?
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Dubey?
Yes.
Dr. Farah?
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mrs. Savage?
Yes.
Everybody? Yeah. You are in at 9:51.
Okay, and then we'll